And welcome to another episode of the Stoic Squeeze podcast. This is Luis Enriquez, your host, along with my co-host, Dimitri. And today we have an awesome guest I'm really excited to talk to. Her name is Astrid Naranjo. She is very popular on Instagram and YouTube. She's a registered dietitian, has a master's degree in dietetics and nutrition, and puts out a lot of information regarding nutrition, food behavior, relationships with food, and overall health mindset information. So,
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here today.
yeah. And this is Dimitri. I'm hanging out in the shadows today. My camera's not working, but yeah, thanks for coming on, Astrid.
A pleasure.
So I saw a little bit about you. You recently joined Team BioLane, and you put out a little mini video introducing yourself. And you went into how you got into nutrition and fitness, which sounds like you got into it at a younger age, based off of what your video said. Do you mind telling us a little bit about you and how you got into nutrition and how you help your clients and knowledge?
Absolutely. So I will try to be succinct and tell my short story because I can get really inspired when I talk about my story. So I started in the fitness industry, like basically at 12 years old. So it was really tiny. I was still in school, and I just decided to do exercise because I wanted to lose weight because I was used to just listen to people say, "Oh, you're so pretty." You like say just walking on the street with no expectations or anything. Someone out of nowhere came and say, "Oh, she's so pretty, but she is a little bit fat." And like, oh my God, that hurts. That hits me, but I didn't even saw their face, or I have no idea who that person was.
So Astrid, this proves that fat shaming works, right? This is the moral of the story. No, just kidding.
Kind of. I guess it depends on how it is delivered, but at the same time, what is your mindset and your state of maturity?
Yeah.
I was a little girl, like I was always just ready to listen compliments because I was not too bad for my age. So I was like, oh well, that wasn't very nice. So the next day I actually decided to join a gym. So I started the gym and started doing classes, and I was doing different fitness group classes, and that way I met a personal trainer, and I sort of got into understanding how they worked with clients, and like, oh, this is very interesting. And obviously it took me like 2.5 3 years to kind of say I actually like this and I want to help people doing this as well. So I started teaching group fitness classes too, and I got heaps of certifications in different areas I liked. So I did fit combat, fit combat, boxing. I started.
I was about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was doing functional training, and then around the 60, I did an actual personal training course. Oh, I think it was Phoenix in the United States, and I did mentorship. It was like a very in-depth course that lasted for 3 weeks. It was like which each phase lasted a week, so I did four four of those, and basically it was all about athletes' performance and nutrition and programming and like everything in depth about training with an athlete and working with different type of clients. So from there, I think that really got me into a place where I love everything about fitness and helping people, working with athletes. clients. And I really liked the aspect of nutrition at the same time. So I was already in nutrition, and I wanted to do nutrition just because I wanted to learn how to do a meal plan, because I thought that that's what it all was about. Nutrition is like, oh, I just create diet for people. State, and I did mentorship. It was like a very in-depth course that lasted for 3 weeks. It was like which each phase lasted a week. So I did four four of those, and basically it was all about athletes' performance and nutrition and programming and like everything in depth about training with an athlete and working with different type of clients. So from there, I think that really got me into a place where I love everything about fitness and helping people, working with athletes, clients. And I really liked the aspect of nutrition at the same time. So I was already in nutrition, and I wanted to do nutrition just because I wanted to learn how to do a meal plan, because I thought that that's what it all was about. Nutrition is like, oh, I just create diet for people myself. So long story short, that was kind of the main trigger. But when I decided to join and do my degree, my bachelor's degree, I was in between doing physiotherapy, dietetics, or medicine. So medicine was an interesting one, but I didn't want to study for the rest of my life, and it was a way too long journey. And I am someone who sees blood and I faint. So it's like I don't think that's good for me. So I was in between physiotherapy and the dietetics then, but nutrition was always like calling me. So went for nutrition, and I did my bachelor's degree, and I was so excited to do everything from the very first day that I came to uni, that I actually was trying to look into diet and nutrition therapy. That was like the eighth semester, and I still was in the first semester. And like I was always trying to look for, I want to already make diets, and I want to already, because that's the only thing that I thought it was all about. But when I just started looking at every single semester and everything you learn, physiology, pathophysiology, anatomy, nutrition, mindsets, like it was so much more than what I thought. And then you see diet, clinical nutrition, and everything about different conditions and how nutrition plays a role into each different condition. It's like this is much more than I thought it would be. And it is just so amazing that you can do so much more as a dietitian than just create a meal plan. So I fall in love with my career, and then I started doing my internships in different hospital settings, private practice, like just public health in general, on the community. Like it was so exciting to see the different phases of a dietitian in different projects, and then different type of communities and different type of patients. So that was really interesting. And then when I finished and graduated as a dietitian, I kind of focused a lot on my own private practice and running like nutrition workshops for general public. I was teaching a lot of like the basics of nutrition, why it's important to manage your diets in a healthy way. So very basic, and then sort of trying to bring on board some coaches and like personal trainers into the game. So then I started doing more like a workshop for those type of people, so personal trainers, and more orientated to teach them how to get on board with clients in a much more professional way and in a much more informed way, to help the clients knowing what they needed to know about nutrition and a basic meal plan creation that is not a cookie cutter. So long story short, I then moved to did my master's degree. Yeah, and I did my master's degree. I studied English for a year, more academic English for a year, just to kind of get myself into actually talking English and understanding it. I was good at understanding it, but my English was a little bit too too basic. So that was when I did my English and then my master's degree, finished my master's degree, and got into a private practice, not private practice, a private hospital rehab setting and mental health setting job. So that's kind of a part time that kind of keeps me up to date with the clinical aspect of nutrition and dietetics. And alongside that, I do my online coaching. So that's me.
So,
Wow.
yeah, that's an incredible story. And I mean, the 12-year-old, like, that's what do you think it was at that age that, got you so motivated into your like lifelong career? I mean, obviously it had to be more than, just being a little insulted.
I don't know. I think you just fall in love with the with doing exercise, and like I realized that it is not just about exercise only if you want to modify your body composition or change your physique, and nutrition was a big component of that. So once I decided to change, because I was going to the gym and I was doing 2 hours of exercise and then would go home and I would eat normal as I was eating before. So obviously that wasn't helping. I was no changing. I was like eating. Was asking my mom to make me like homemade pizza, and I would eat like 2 or 3 decent amount of pizzas. So I was not in a calorie deficit, and I was not. I learned that perhaps nutrition might have something to do with changing your physique. That's where I understood. Oh, so there's something that you have to do with your nutrition to change your body. And that's where I kind of understood that nutrition is a very important key component for modifying your physique and changing your body composition. But you have to do it the right way. And there is so many more things that go beyond just creating a calorie deficit that's where it got me into very passionate about trying to understand that and understanding the human behaviors and dieting. It is so much more complex than that. Or like just understanding why people gain weight.
Yeah, you cover a lot of ground on your social media on Instagram. We mentioned we follow you. You bring up a lot of great topics. One of your recent ones regarding managing your weight, you made a post that said we don't have a weight loss problem, we have a weight regain problem, and it did make me think that it feels like there is more information today than I can remember about nutrition and exercise and strategies and the popular diets that are out there today. So it seems like there's more information today than ever, but I don't know if it's working. And to your point, a lot of diets might work, but it's the regain that's the issue. What made you realize that, and why do you?
Absolutely. From recent years, I've been reading so much new research and a lot of papers about behavior and like weight loss and like the battle of low carb, high carb diets and which one is best. Battles around what do we need for people to lose weight and keep it off. And when you realize, and this is talking to Lane Norton and my team who I work with, which is kind of very strong about finding a middle ground to weight loss, what works for you, what is sustainable, what is achievable, and not just doing a diet that your friend did and you just try to imitate that because you think that's the only way to lose weight. The issue is that when you create a calorie deficit, you can definitely lose the weight because that's gonna do the job. But it's not about losing weight the problem. for the most part, you see that everyone who jumps and actually is in a calorie deficit lose weight. However, if you don't learn anything along the way about how to manage your stress eating, emotional eating, how you cope when you are going out and you're in a social event, what are some of the bright lines you have to put and certain boundaries. If you don't learn how to be physically active throughout the day, you're not working on like a high protein diet. There are so many different things that help at the end of the day to there are so many behaviors and habits that if you don't have them in place, once you have lost all the weight you wanted to lose in the first place, you are not going to be able to maintain it. So people don't learn those habits and behaviors when they are jump on a crash diet or like a detox. They can lose weight very quick, and that is probably at first quite motivating because you see a lot of weight dropping out of you, but it is not necessarily the adequate way you're losing because you're probably losing a lot of body water and muscle over body fat. Body fat doesn't go away that fast, especially if you were thinking in a time frame of 1 or 2 weeks. It takes a long time to lose that amount of weight in a very healthy way, and you're maintaining your lean body mass as much as possible. So when you look at all these things, apart from having enough time to actually realize what your weaknesses are, where do you tend to find your biggest challenges when it comes to maintain or achieve your goals on your own, that's where you start realizing that there is so much more than just creating a calorie deficit or just doing or following a diet that works by work to a place where you're looking for in terms of your body weight, but is it changing anything else, or is it harming? Make sense?
Absolutely. So I wanted, as a dietitian, and you practice right now in Australia, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I have some friends in the States that are dietitians, and I'm sure you're aware of, some of the obesity statistics in the United States, but it's a pretty discouraging profession from their own, mouths, basically saying that, they could give the people the information and such, but like, especially in the hospital settings, like compliance is like very, very rare. And, I think people don't have skin in the game. They're in the hospital, they're sick, they're, prescribed seeing a dietitian, etc., as opposed to when people seek it out themselves. But what is the state right now in like Australia? When you're in a hospital setting, do you feel like people are more compliant, less compliant? And do you think that there's major cultural differences between the countries? Because stats in the U.S. are pretty abysmal, and it just seems like every year it gets worse. And let's hear some good news, Astrid.
I don't think there is any difference. There's any difference in like comparing United States or here. I don't think there's much of a difference. The mindset is when you're sick or when you're in a hospital, the least thing you want to see is a dietitian who's going to tell you what to eat or what you need to change. I find really difficult to educate patients and clients in a hospital setting because patients they're not waiting for you to just come and talk to you about their diet unless they're actually very keen to lose weight and they see an opportunity to speak with a dietitian for free. In the meantime, they are just laying in bed or waiting for getting to get better. But that's where it becomes a little bit tricky when you're in a hospital setting to actually build a rapport with the client and just come and say, look, I received a referral and this is what has been given me in terms of information about what you need, and the doctor wants you to lose weight. And sometimes the referrals are like, this patient needs to lose weight, or this patient needs nutrition education because they're diabetic and they have no idea what to eat. So they are not necessarily coming to you, you're coming to them, and it is a little bit more challenging to build that rapport and create that that connection between what they need and what they want, because probably they need to be educated on diabetes, and the doctor tells them basically you have to stop eating carbohydrates, or change the diet, but they have no idea what to do or what to expect. And I kind of don't want to be the one who's is going to tell them you have to change the way you eat. You have to stop eating these or modify these. So it is kind of working around their goals. And I think it is the approach you use as a dietitian and how you build that connection with the patient. I think it is key to change the way they respond and their adherence. If you create a plan with them, like negotiating what is feasible, what is possible, what they want to achieve, and how much they want to put as a compromise in order to get better, then that changes the situation. And sometimes it's much more successful when we listen to our patient to kind of create the plan with you, not you just coming up with a plan and tell them what to do, but rather empowering them and telling them, what do you think you can change? So it's more like that motivational interviewing skills that a clinician needs to develop to make sure the client and the patient is on board with your plan, and you can decide strategies together to make things work. So I think a lot of the problem seems to be lack of understanding from the clinician point of view what the patient wants, and how can you best work with them to find a specific strategy in a very empowering way. And at the same time, the client is going to feel they have been listened, they have been heard, and they are working on something that they know they can do. Because it's like, how confident you think you can do this. And if they say, well, I am not very confident, then you have to modify the plan because they're not going to adhere for that long. So it's just that empathy and that building relationship with the client or the patient in order to create goals that are more patient driven and not clinician driven. Because I might want for the patient to do 100% and get better as soon as possible. So I am confident that they will improve their quality of life and like for the best of the client. But if they're not there or they are not ready, you can't push them, and you have to go step by step. And it's finding what the baseline is to start from there, rather than creating a new baseline that you don't know whether the client is going to be up to date.
Do you think that nutrition education is better or the same or worse in Australia than the U.S.? You know, I find here in the U.S. people are confused a lot and they don't know much about nutrition. Not much is taught in school. And if you got lucky and, follow the right person like you learn some stuff. But there's a lot of obviously people on social media that, aren't as evidence-based, and they have a big following too. So there's a lot of confusion out there. Do you find the same thing?
It's exactly this. If you, as you said, if you get lucky and you find the right sources, you can learn a lot and clarify your questions and have a better understanding of what the real truth evidence-based nutrition is. But there is a same or much more confusion about nutrition nowadays everywhere you go, because there's so much information, there's so many different um, people saying different things that you don't know what is true, what is not true. Um, and at the end of the day, nutrition is much more simpler and basic than we think it is, and people overcomplicate everything about nutrition. So, and that by overcomplicated, I mean people go into the extremes, and if it has to be black or white. You can't.
Can you give some examples? What are the examples the most?
Oh, for example, like you can't have if you have hypertension, you can't have salt. You have to eliminate salt completely. Um, if you have high cholesterol, you have to eliminate all foods that contain cholesterol, and you have to stop eating eggs. I don't know. If you want to lose weight, you have to go.
So, Astrid,
the cholesterol.
So this is a topic of conversation that comes up for us a lot. So I told you before the podcast I went through dramatic weight loss in 2019, and what really worked for me specifically, and I was Lewis's best friend forever, and like I said, I was over 300 pounds essentially my whole adult life, easily 100 pounds to lose, and tried a million times to lose weight, and nothing stuck. And my biggest problems back then were the nutrition and not so much the physical activity, because I was a high school athlete. I still coached soccer at the time and, did like enough workout, but my eating was atrocious. And during the weight loss, I think one of the biggest reasons why I was successful was while I lost the weight, that ketogenic diet worked very well for me, specifically, I think, because I actually enjoyed what I was eating. And my version of ketogenic diet was basically meats and vegetables. So obviously compared to my last diet, like my nutrition intake and everything was through the roof. And, it worked really well and it regulated my hunger. But anyways, the people that I follow are like the Whole 30 people, Dallas and Melissa Harwig, and Primal Blueprint, Mark Sisson. And I see a lot of like carnivore people. And the cholesterol thing is like one of the highest subjects of debate amongst the groups. And basically the group of the primal and paleo, they're saying that the cholesterol is not to be that worrisome because of this, and the other group saying that this is the like biggest markers for heart attack and etc. So yeah,
the debate about LDL I've seen come up a lot from the primal and carnivore and keto people, and then let's just call it your group, Lane and yourself and other people that say no, LDL is a marker of heart disease. And back to who's right, who's wrong, who's reading the evidence correctly. Why is there this debate, and what from your interpretation?
Because I'm worried, Astrid, I did keto for over a year. I had great success. Am I going to die of a heart attack?
So Dimitri lost a lot of weight off of keto, and I actually was the one that warned him and said, hey, just watch out.
I was like when I first started doing it, I was very, very afraid because of everything I learned from the past, and Lewis was kind of against it, and like I got great results, and most importantly, I felt great and like was objectively so much healthier. Now, whether it was had anything to do with ketogenic diet or the fact that my diet was just so much cleaner in general, and I was getting proper nutrients, and obviously my weight loss was pretty much a couple pounds a week, like over 9 months. It wasn't anything like crazy dramatic. It was just consistent, and Anyway, sorry. We'll let Astrid come in.
At the end of the day, what works is what you can adhere to.
Correct.
For a long period of time, and that is going to look different for every single person. Like maybe for you, because it aligned with your preferences, it just felt good. It was satiating. You weren't hungry. You were having more protein perhaps than before. And that was probably what helped you to stay on that diet specifically. And that was what helps to achieve that change in your body composition, is that you still find a way to adhere to it for long in the middle of the way. So with the LDL thing, there is a little bit of controversy around the LDL and the cholesterol, and I think it is two different things: cholesterol, dietary cholesterol, and how that impacts actual LDL cholesterol. So dietary cholesterol by itself has a very small impact on blood cholesterol, and blood cholesterol is more impacted by intake of high, probably saturated fats, like a lot of foods that contain saturated fats. Mostly, that would be the main reason for your cholesterol, your blood cholesterol to go up more than eating like high cholesterol containing foods, such as like seafood, like shrimps,
eggs.
Eggs have cholesterol as well, and there's no real association or that huge impact. It will have a tiny impact, but it's not that significant to create an increase of your LDL.
So what increases the LDL? Is that like coconut oil and that type of stuff?
Saturated fats.
Okay.
So sources of saturated fats. For the most part, it will be like oils, like fatty cuts of meats. And it depends as well on how much and how often, and the combination of other aspects as well. So how's your lifestyle? What is your physical activity like? What is the fiber consumption? Like, it is not just one thing. Like, you might have relatively high intake of saturated fats, but you eat decent amount of fiber. You have a really good, adequate intake of vegetables and fruit, and you have so it is like a more holistic thing than just pinpointing or blaming one thing. It's the more about the lifestyle rather than pinpointing, oh well, if you eat saturated fats, you're going to have high cholesterol. Like, it is not that straightforward. There has to happen other things as well, but obviously it is so much complex that we could stay hours just speaking about cholesterol and LDL. But I have heard a couple of times. I was in an interview with Ted Naiman about specifically this topic about cholesterol. Some evidence that there is, when you are analyzing LDL, there are different types of LDL lipids in your blood, or like lipoproteins, that depends. They become more dangerous, and they can adhere to the wall of your vessels and arteries when they have been modified or glycated. So when your diet is really when you have insulin resistance, and you have like a very high intake of sugar and carbohydrates, and you have a very poor physical activity, and your diet is really messed up, probably there is more chances for your LDL cholesterol or of that lipoproteins to be this bad lipoprotein that can adhere to the walls. There's another type of LDL cholesterol, more dense and doesn't adhere to the walls that easily. So it's like healthier LDL. But it is something that I'm not too clear about, and I want to kind of delve deeper into that studies, because this doesn't seem much people think about the combination of insulin resistance, having high blood sugar with high LDL cholesterol. So it is a whole world.
Yeah, no, and it gets complicated, and that's thanks for giving some clarity. So someone like Dom D'Agostino, for example, who I think was just on a podcast with Lane Norton actually not too long ago, and I listened to it, and he's talked about, his LDLs, and like by the markers they're extremely high, but because of his like active lifestyle and all the other things that he does healthy, it's probably not as big as an issue. And that's the caveat, because everything else he does is healthy, as opposed to like somebody who would have high LDLs who's just a couch potato, eats terribly, you know, doesn't work out, and etc. But I mean, even that being said, should people like it's just is there just not enough information yet? Like why?
What would you tell the person who knows nothing about cholesterol?
Yeah.
And what to avoid and what to not be so worried about? Because like you said, it is very complicated. And even the more I learn about nutrition, the more I realize I don't know much. So what would you tell somebody, you know, like we said, level of education across the general population? Like what would your general recommendations be about cholesterol?
I would just be very clear about that the diet has to have a combination of things to be holistic and healthier. So I always go for the rule of 80-20. So if you can't eat 80% of the time, whole foods, vegetables, lean protein sources, seeds and nuts and fruit, and that is what 80% of your diet looks like. The other 20% can be anything you like. So either I call them soul foods or treats. You can definitely add those into your diet as long as the majority of your diet is relatively nutritious and has a lot of energy dense sources in there, nutrient dense foods, that you can really find a nice balance between um, nutritious foods and things that are tasty and sustainable. So you create a sustainable diet. For the most part, that's what it looks like for someone who doesn't know anything about nutrition and
Yeah.
cholesterol. If you want to have if you want to have foods that contain cholesterol, you can have them for sure. There's nothing wrong. Have every single
It's
day.
one of my favorite
That's,
foods. I've been
yeah,
eating whole eggs since I was a toddler.
correct. So there's nothing wrong with having high cholesterol food sources because it will play a part into your health. Like,
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Dimitri and I do debate. You know, you mentioned the 80-20 rule. You know, Dimitri and I do debate that for some people, do they need to completely eliminate some foods because they are that addicted? They have that much of a behavior problem with some foods. Dimitri, if you want to expand on some of the things we've talked about, but
I say so. My opinions is we're at a state, especially in the United States, and I just Googled Australia. It sounds like you guys are not far behind, unfortunately, in like most of the
no,
modern world. It gets worse every year, and at some point, like you said, there's many ways that you're going to lose weight, and that's why I love following people like you. The advice is just so pragmatic and sound because if you're not going to adhere to it, what's the difference anyways? And when it comes to just straight up weight loss, there's many ways to lose weight, and being like losing weight's pretty easy, honestly, if you're just going to comply and do it. Now, whether that's going to make you healthier and you're going to sustain that and whatever, that's where the issues come in. And collectively as a whole, we're just getting crushed. So are we at the point where it's just state of emergency and like, you know, like it'd be nice if people are going to like get it someday, but sometimes I feel like it's just easier for people to just follow when they cut out carbs, for example, just like on a ketogenic diet, etc. And there's the other side where you don't want to create like relationships with food and deem foods as bad or negative. And I'm not sure where I stand on that. What do you, go ahead.
my concern is always to demonize foods could create relationship problems and binge eating, which is something that you talk a lot about too. So, you know, what are your opinions on completely eliminating foods because maybe we are in that state of emergency as a population, and how is our behavior affected by moderation or, you know, completely removing?
I guess it is a very broad question and it would be a very long answer, but and the dieting history of someone might tell you a lot about how the nutrition or the current relationship with food and the behaviors are. So I see that a lot of people has like a very chronic dieting history, and that is what brings people with obsession to food and not knowing how to use other coping mechanisms if you are emotional or stressed, depressed. A lot of people use food as a soothing mechanism to feel good. And highly palatable foods is becoming much more available as well. There's much more nutrition science behind creating foods that are addictive and delicious, and they just want to eat them more because they create such a good sensation and so rewarding when you have them. That is, it's just a matter of there is a problem of excessive availability, but the other thing is there's a lot of marketing as well. There is a lot of issues with like physical activity. We are less moving, much less than before. You can do everything online now. You don't need to move from out of your house. Even if you wanted to have your shopping, you can do all your groceries shopping from home. So it's like there's no need to go out at all if you don't want to move. So there's so much convenience, the ability, and the increase of health, a deterioration in a lot of people, emotional eating, using coping mechanisms, and using food as one of those. I think is not just one thing. Obesity is so complex and multifactorial that is really hard to pinpoint that this like the culprit is being food addicted. It's not that you're food addicted, but if that's the only thing that you've learned to use as a coping mechanism, obviously you're going to be food addicted. If you have been restricting certain foods for like all your life because that is what dieting has told you to do because that's the only way that you think you can lose weight, then you for sure are going to lose willpower at some point and you will binge on it. So it is so much complex, and there's not like I wouldn't say that there is an actual food addiction problem. It is more about a much more holistic approach and understanding that there's no one single cause. And perhaps for a lot of people at some point in their treatment to get better and heal their disorder eating or their relationship with food, you need to eliminate some foods for a while. And maybe that is something that you have to implement, but it doesn't mean like you will have to eliminate that for the rest of their lives. It is just a period of time while you are working on other issues that will allow you to be in a better place. So then you can reintroduce those foods and reintroduce the way they approach these foods in a much healthier way, much more balanced way, and they can still again, but then they are in a much better place emotionally and mentally. So food is not going to be the go-to to solve the problem. Yeah. And I always say problem, food is not going to be the solution either. Or if hunger is not the solution.
No, that makes a lot of sense. People get into the what to do very, very quickly without understanding all the other aspects that you mentioned, the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, and really, work on themselves from within. And that it sounds like that is a big miss for a lot of people. So
I agree.
You cover a lot of other interesting topics. Another recent one that Dimitri and I have been debating a lot is the diet soda debate. I saw you recently posted about that. I think it was stevia versus aspartame in the studies. I turned Dimitri to start drinking diet soda because he stopped drinking it for a long time, and I told him it's not a big deal, man. Have a couple a day or one a day. It's not going to kill you. But did I just sentence Dimitri to death by having him drink aspartame?
So I was a huge pop drinker, and I would drink regular pop. This was probably part of the weight gain because my parents never had it in my house, and I graduated high school, started working full time, drink like 200 ounces of regular pop a day, and I gained 70
regular
pounds
pop,
in 3
right?
months.
Like with sugar and calories?
Correct. So then my early 20s, I switched to diet, and I was a lifelong diet pop drinker. And I always said there's no way I could quit pop. And I would probably drink around 100, 200 ounces a day. And then when I did my weight loss, I completely cut out pop. And when I drank it, diet, everything, it would be Zevia. So here's the thing. I like Zevia, and it definitely like filled that like, craving when you're craving pop. It did well, but I don't think it tastes as good as like a regular diet pop. So what the thing that I've heard is what you addressed, that it could ruin your gut biome. So what's the actual issue? Is there any benefits in drinking like a Zevia versus like a traditional diet pop? And
I don't think there's much of a difference, to be honest. The research doesn't seem to be very clear about which one is going to be worse for your gut microbiome. Obviously, the dose makes the poison. So obviously, if you have incredibly high amounts of something, it can still affect your health overall. 5 liters of water in less than 2 minutes, you can die.
Yeah.
So like water can kill you. Like whatever that you use is going to make the poison. Like medication it seems to be good for you when you need it. But if you have medication that is overdosed, it becomes poison and it can kill you. So everything in extremes, and the dose is going to definitely define how good or how bad it is for you. So a small doses of Botox is good for certain conditions. But if you overdo it, or you have like an overdose of Botox, you can have a heart attack and you can die. So with everything in context, the dose will define how good or how bad. Obviously, you have to have, I think it is just a debate of, because stevia is natural and artificial is like artificial sweeteners, or like sucralose or aspartame are artificial and were created in a lab, then that's bad for you because they're artificial. And that's not the case. Things that are natural can still be quite dangerous, healthier for you. And there's been more research and more safety research on it, like all artificial sweeteners that you can think of, than recent sweetener that's being used in the market. And the safety between these, more aspartame or sucralose than stevia, and that would be much more tolerable and safer than stevia. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So how many liters can I drink a day is what I want to know. No, I'm just kidding.
If you're eating, or like if you're having diet soda, like it depends on your body weight. Like if someone who has an average weight of 50, 60 kilos, you would need to, for you to reach a toxic level or see a negative effect, you would need to have 36 to 40 diet sodas every week.
All right, Dimitri, you got to cut down on the diet soda.
Yeah.
But
no, that
it
makes
is
sense.
Extremely high amounts. Like
Yeah.
it is high. You wouldn't see every single person. Like I am definitely sure there will be some people that can reach 36 cans a day easily. Very random. Like not everyone is going to do that. So there will be outliers, but it doesn't mean like it is something that is definitely for sure that quantity is going to be lethal or damaging. Like it could, every single person respond differently. Like a lot of people will come and say, well, I just had a can of diet soda and it just gave me migraine, or it just gave me diarrhea. And that is going to be one person. Another person would say, that's not true because I had 4 liters of 6 liters of diet soda throughout the day and I had no issues whatsoever. So we see like every story and every anecdote is going to be different from person to person, but to send the most sound message that can apply for a general of people.
Definitely. So I mean,
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I my pop consumption in general is like way down. I would probably say it's a handful a week. So it's just marketing. It's just one of those things. It's one of those like marketing things where people, were afraid because of the tests in laboratory animals, like what, 1,000,000 years ago with the aspartame, and it just, had a negative connotation. And then these new products come out with better marketing. This is a natural sweetener, and essentially it's just benign, right? Like, unless you're doing massive amounts of either, there's no real objective healthier or unhealthier soda.
So what else, Astrid? What are the biggest health misinformation things that you see out there that you think are the most dangerous? You said that, hey, ketogenic diet can work for some people. It's not a bad diet as long as you can adhere to it, right? There's a lot of other diets, and there's a lot of social media influencers out there. What is the information out there that you see there that you say, hey, that's pretty dangerous? That it's frustrating me that this information is being put out there.
Not that I have at the moment in my head, but sometimes I see like this detox and cleanses and that kind of advice that if you have this amount of pounds and at the same time you're going to cleanse your body, or like these diets that are just a little bit out of context with evidence, like alkaline diet. There's nothing wrong with them, but they are not magical and they are not going to change your pH. It is more like that they are in the wrong context and they are not evidence-based. And I would say the most worrying or concerning could be the detoxing and the crash dieting, just because they are cookie cutters and they promote fast results. And they look promising when you see the changes and the transformations. But all of these things usually are and like a really behind, like a good plan behind showing those pictures. So I don't know. At this stage, I don't think I have anything that really concerns me until I hear every single extreme and pushing people to believe that is those things are the only way to achieve the goals, and that is just misleading people to believe that there's only one way to do things. That can be very extreme for some, and that can disrupt obviously everything else. If you're in the other extreme, like let's say you're vegan, but you're being told over and over that keto is the way or carnivore is the way, how are you going to go about it if you are not if you don't want to go that route? So then if you completely decide to believe that that's the only way to achieve your goals, you need to change everything you believe and everything you do just to try to follow a trend that is promising something that probably is not going to work for you anyway.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So you had your own practice, and now you recently joined Team.
Yeah, since forever. Even before I came to Australia, I've been doing a lot of online coaching, and I've been in contact with Lane and Holly for quite a while already. So I worked for them a few years ago. I was creating some of their posts for Instagram. We kind of continue to work together, and they offered me the opportunity to be part of the team as one of the coaches, and that was early this year. So yeah, since then I've been part of the team and very, very happy to be there. And yeah, it's very great experience to just feel like you belong somewhere, and you're surrounded by people you appreciate and admire. So that's really cool.
That's great.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Dee.
So, Astrid, where do you think we're heading? We're in 2021. Do you see this start to turn around and the world get it together, or you think we got a few more years of struggle? Or I don't know what to make of this, because every year it gets worse, and it seems like the problem's so extreme. And what's the biggest culprit? What are we just fighting against? Like in the modern world, where we can just click buttons and order things. And like you said, if you don't ever want to leave your house and you live in a modern world, nowadays it's possible, where it just never was before.
To be honest, I don't know. I think that is a really hard battleship. We are all in, especially clinicians and evidence-based practitioners that want for things to happen in a different way, but there is that we just do our parts, and we just do what the best we can do to make things better. And the more we can spread information and make other people aware and educate more people, that's the only way that we can sort of put our little paddle on this ongoing battle to try to make things right. I don't think we can definitely for sure predict we can change the world, things are better. But there seems to be more awareness in people. There seems to be a little bit of a better understanding of nutritional science, and we just need to do a lot more work, because what we see is a tiny number of people that are now awakened and now are listening to a sound nutritional advice. But there is so much more. Like, there are like billions and billions of people in the world, and we just saw like a 1%. So I don't think we are getting much of an advantage, but we just need to put in the reps and show up every day and try to keep pushing and fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
That's the only thing will happen.
Yeah, no, and I think it's now more than ever super important that people like yourself and the team at BioLane are doing what you're doing, fighting that good fight and getting the information out there. I think it's one of the biggest oversights in modern humans, period. I wish the United States government would do a better job in just like school and education and teaching us at like a very young age. And obviously it looks like the rest of the world probably has some room to do that as well. So thanks so much for the work that you do, because who's doing it if not you know what I mean? And the world clearly needs to hear it and needs to get motivated, because we're getting collectively more unhealthy.
Yes,
well, you've given us a lot of information. I really appreciate it. I know we're coming up on time. What last few thoughts, would you give our listeners on where to start if they're struggling, if they want to get started? What would you say, top 2, top 3 things that they could do to get started?
I say that the best advice I can give you is to keep it simple and don't overwhelm yourself trying to reach the 100% if your baseline is 2%. So step by step, create reasonable steps moving forward that you can be certain you can achieve, and just go from there. Understand and analyze and reflect on what you're at, and if you want to change, just aim to be 1% better the next day. Just do small things that are going to contribute to be a better person, be a better version of yourselves. But it is something that has to go slowly and steady, so it is sustainable and it's not overwhelming. Some people might be able to jump steps at once, but other people might need to just go one at a time. So it is just a matter of your capabilities, what is your understanding, what are your challenges, understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, and knowing what you need to improve. Where can you do better within your current lifestyle and nutritional habits? Your that a tiny bit every single day. How can you do better? So that I think it is the most sound advice I could just give if you're just trying to get yourself started. Just start and don't wait for motivation to be the driver of your actions, but the other way around. The actions that you do now are going to impact on your motivation because you're going to see results, and that is going to keep the ball rolling and give that momentum. So motivation is not really good to depend or to rely on, because some days you will be really, really high, and some days you will feel like you don't want to do anything. It's completely scattered. So rely on your intentions, set up realistic goals, and start doing that. Start step by step.
That's really good advice, and as hard as it is to do today, that people need to just compare themselves to themselves.
Yeah.
Social media is great, but you're also going to fall into the trap of comparing yourselves to all these perfect people that really aren't perfect, of course, but that's what they show. And like you said, it's just starting and then doing a little bit better each and every day. So I think that's great advice. So, where do our listeners find you? How do people start learning more?
Last thing. So on Instagram, you're anti-diet_dietitian, right? I love the name. So what do you think of the word diet in general? Because I feel like this is one of the biggest problems. And
well, diet. The word diet means just what you eat.
Correct. Yeah, but
overall.
the way that it's used in especially popular culture, like fad diets and all that, it confuses everything. And the way that the standard person eats. Like when they say that a diet is a fad diet or it's unhealthy or whatever, compared to what? Compared to whatever they were eating, like their McDonald's, 5 times a week, etc. So the word diet just gets.
Yeah, the word. Unfortunately, the word diet has been misused a lot. And people, when they hear the word diet, they think it means restriction, and it means eliminating foods and losing weight. But it is not
correct. Yeah.
Properly used. So diet is overall whatever you eat, whatever your eating patterns look like, that is what your diet is. Just eating whatever you eat with the amounts you eat. Now, it is being misused, and that's why a bad thing.
Yeah.
People, I need to go into a diet. You eat already.
Yeah. You already have a diet. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
No. Well, Astrid, thanks again. You can finish. So we can find you on Instagram.
Yeah, so you can find me on antidiet_dietitian. That's where I'm the most active, to be honest. I am there every day, pretty much 24/7, unless I'm sleeping. But I am always there. My YouTube channel that I slowly been building with all these amazing interviews and conversation I have with so many great researchers and guys from the nutrition and fitness industry, and find me.
Yeah,
sounds good. Well, we'll make sure that when we post this, we'll put all the information on the show notes and the summary of the podcast. And I really appreciate you joining. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and I know today we just skimmed the surface, I feel like, and hope to have you again. And maybe we'll pick a topic and we'll do a deep dive on a topic that could help our folks, our listeners here. So thanks so much for joining, and I hope you had.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Astrid. Have a great day.